Oh, that would be terrific.
Hello, everyone. I'm Toonie Shartner, the Executive Director of District Hall and Venture Cafe Providence. We are always excited to partner with Rhode Island Bio, and especially excited for today's program. This is going to be, I'm excited to be an attendee and listen. And welcome everyone to our virtual lounge. Behind me, I have our event space, and we're slowly starting to get back in person, and excited to be hosting hybrid events starting in May, and hopeful that by September that will be our new normal. We'll have, we're starting with small groups, and hopefully making those groups a little bit bigger throughout the summer, and then by September, I think our new normal will be, virtual or in person, whatever you desire. So, thank you, Carol, and Rhode Island Bio. You're an amazing partner. And we love growing this sector of our economy with you. And thank you to all who are presenting and attending.
Toonie, are those real people behind you, or is that a photo?
That is a photo from the Mass Challenge Minute Pitches I think that's the late summer of 2019. But, wishful thinking, right?
Right.
Well, thank you again, Toonie. So I want to welcome everyone to this morning's session, our Rhode Island Innovator Series, Access to Capital. My name is Carol Mallis, and I'm the Executive Director of Rhode Island Bio, which is Rhode Island's life sciences trade organization. And as the trade group for the life sciences in Southeastern New England, we advance the industry through education, collaboration, and advocacy. And we do so by providing information, sharing resources, offering access to capital, and creating industry connections. And so in short, we help science advance so science can advance lives. I want to thank our sponsors, the Venture Cafe and Toonie and all her team, Bio, Rhode Island INBRI, and Driven for sponsoring this event. So on behalf of my co-host, Bungsup Cho, the program director for Rhode Island INBRI, a little bit about his program. It's a statewide network designed to build the biomedical research capacity of Rhode Island institutions by supporting and developing talented individuals committed to research careers in Rhode Island. And this program was made possible with the support available by the Rhode Island Institutional Development Award Network of Biomedical Research Excellence and by the Driven Accelerator Hub, both of which are funded by the National Institute of General Medical Sciences of the National Institutes of Health. So thank you again, Bungsup, and everyone at Rhode Island INBRI and Driven. This morning for our presentation, if you have questions, please put them in the chat function. We'll be having a Q&A at the end of the session as well, but feel free to add any questions as we go along, and we'll address them at the end of our session. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Guy Asadorian, Senior Vice President and Private Client Advisor with Bank of America Private Bank. With more than 2 decades of mergers and acquisitions experience, Guy has assisted business owners with the planning and execution of their exit strategies, including assessing the readiness of their companies for sale, connecting them with investment bankers who have knowledge of their specific industries, and helping with their post-transaction wealth management needs. Guy is active in the venture and startup community in Rhode Island, and he's a longtime member of the Cherry Stone Angel Group. He also serves as a director on the Rhode Island Bio Board. So welcome, Guy.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this morning to this morning's event. And Carol, that's a very generous introduction. Thank you. So historically, there's been a lack of available capital for early stage businesses situated in Rhode Island. So therefore, many of the successful companies that have managed to raise capital have had to do so outside of Rhode Island, and ultimately have ended up relocating to try and follow the capital. So this is something that the stakeholders in the Rhode Island venture community, including Rhode Island Bio, have been working on fixing. So we're happy to report that there has been a lot of progress on that front. And really, this is a lot of what we're going to talk about in this morning's discussion. So we've got a fabulous panel today, and that consists of 2 investors slash capital providers, as well as 2 entrepreneurs who have successfully raised capital in Rhode Island. So we're going to have some back and forth discussion, and we're going to go for about 45 minutes, and then we're going to leave some time for Q&A at the end, hopefully 15 minutes or so. So our panelists this morning are first Bob Minuti. Bob is a local entrepreneur and longtime member of the Cherry Stone Angel Group. We have Thorne Sparkman, who's a managing director of the Slater Technology Fund. We have Dom Messerly, who's president and CEO of Rhode Island-based Lenas Medical. And we have Steven Zorn, who's the president and CEO of Rhode Island-based Mind Immune Therapeutics. So it's a great panel. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start by doing introductions of the panelists. So we'll give everybody a chance, each of the 4 panelists, to introduce themselves and describe their background and their business. So Bob, why don't we start with you, and if you'd be so kind as to kick off here.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Guy. I started out as a chemical engineer and liked that and what I was doing, but didn't really like living in LaGrange, Georgia. So have bounced around the country a little bit, and worked with a company that was trying to spin off businesses. Enjoyed that, and then decided to start doing it on my own. I've done a dozen different startups and spin-offs over my career. I had some good exits and had some disastrous exits as well. Came back to Rhode Island because we wanted to be closer to family and a great place to live. And I'm a strong believer in making where you want to live, and making where you want to work, where you want to work. And they don't have to be the same places. So we were in Rhode Island, and that's where I had some successful exits. And from there, I decided to get involved with angel investing. Over the last 15 years, I've probably done 24 different investments with different companies in New England, I would say primarily, and have been working with the Cherry Stone Angel Group. Cherry Stone Angel Group is a group that Guy is a member of, but also has about 65 members. But the thing that's really kind of interesting about Cherry Stone Angel Group is that the members have all a totally different type of talent pool. And so you get subject matter experts. And when you're angel investing, having somebody that really knows what is a great idea, as opposed to what you think sounds like a great idea, is kind of an important feature. And so we're always looking for new members. We're always looking for adding people with different talents. And if there's any of you out there that are interested in angel investing, give us a call. We'd love to have you, as long as you're interested in being an active investor. And that's my background.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Thorne, how about you? Why don't you go next?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, my first technology job was doing internet-related things at Time Warner. I spent some time in the Bay Area where I went to Berkeley and started a business incubator. And I founded and sold an internet company, which brought me back to the East Coast. But for 2 decades now, I've been working with the Slater Technology Fund, which is the oldest and most active seed fund in the state. We're a manager of the venture capital portion of Rhode Island's small business credit capital program. We're also an evergreen seed fund, and we work with private investors to create special purpose vehicles for certain situations as well. But through all of that, the common theme is that we're supporting entrepreneurs, building companies in Rhode Island, and working to commercialize technologies coming out of Rhode Island institutions. We invest in life sciences, software, and energy. We're a small team, but we're augmented by some of the state's business and institutional leaders. So we get a little more traction based on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Thorne. How about you, Dom? You want to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me?
You're good.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Dom Messerly. I'm the founder, president, and CEO of Lenos Medical, and I'm also on the board of Rhode Island Bio as well. Our company, we have the first and only product that allows for natural healing of spinal fractures. That's our product that we have. My background has been with a large medical device company for almost 20 years, which was Synthes and J&J. And then I jumped off into the world of entrepreneurship and enjoying it very much thus far. And in regards to fundraising, we've done the traditional, founder, family, friends round of about $1 million first. We just completed the seed round of 1.25 million, which we actually exceeded, over the last few months with, tremendous support from this Rhode Island ecosystem. So it's great to be here, and I look forward to this panel.
Thanks, Dom, and congratulations on the capital that you have raised. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Steven, how about you?
Sure. I'm Steven Zorn. I'm president and CEO of Mind Immune Therapeutics, a Rhode Island company. My background is all in science. I'm a neuropharmacologist by training. I have a bachelor's in chemistry, a master's in neurotoxicology, and a PhD in neuroscience. I went on to do molecular neuroscience at Rockefeller University in New York. And from there, I went to Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, where I began a 30-year-long industry career in discovering and developing pharmaceutical drugs. And I raised the ranks at Pfizer, ultimately becoming the therapeutic area head of central nervous system disorder discovery globally. And then I left Pfizer to try out a medium-sized pharma company, Lundbeck Pharmaceuticals, where I became the U.S. head of research. And then while I was at Lundbeck, we developed the industry's first neuroinflammation discovery group. Neuroinflammation is a very hot area of neuroscience research now. And when Lundbeck closed its doors in the United States, we took the ideas that we developed there and brought them into the embodiment of a company called Mind Immune, where we started the company with assets that we had licensed from Lundbeck and also a homegrown project as a three-legged stool company. And then we sought to begin our seed funding, et cetera, et cetera. Built an agreement with the University of Rhode Island, where we set our home base, laboratory, and offices, and here we are.
Fantastic. Very impressive, Steven. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's jump off here with the first question. And Bob and Thorne, this is probably going to be for you primarily. So from the standpoint of an investor and a capital provider, what are the challenges in finding investment opportunities in Rhode Island? So Bob, how about you? You start with that.
So they're slightly different when you start to look at the world of angel opportunities that are out there. There's a handful in Rhode Island, and so you almost have to spread the net, right, and look a little bit broader. When you look at New York, there's a lot of angel investment that's going on there, and you see your valuations start to rise. So you can't get as good of a deal. But more importantly, a lot of entrepreneurs see that as a way to get a better valuation early on. But valuations have a way of kind of feathering out as time goes on. So a second round is not nearly as big of an up round in New York a lot of times as it is in Rhode Island. In Boston, you don't quite see that same valuation dip. It's similar. So deals coming out of the Boston area and deals coming out of Rhode Island value about the same. So I see that as a play. But I think as an entrepreneur, your net has to be like New England, for example. So Cherrystone Angel Group is the largest in Rhode Island in terms of angel groups, but I think I really prefer to define it as one of the largest in New England, because that's kind of where our net kind of casts. And from a standpoint of deals, specific deals that we're looking at, everybody kind of thinks that there's a magic bullet, but the reality is it comes down to polish. How well put together a deal is, and that brings all of the players probably that are on the call into play. So whether you're a large university and you're able to pull guys with gray hair like myself into a team or of graduates and bring some industry specific knowledge into that deal, that adds polish for that. MIT and Harvard do that spectacularly well, for example. You also have that same kind of thing happening with incubators and the guys that are kind of helping on the front end to help guys learn how to do pitches and understand what cap tables are and some of the structural things that are out there. But I think the more polished the deal is, the better the deal's gonna end up being. And I think that's being sold. And I think anything that you could do to help polish a deal wherever it is going to be the biggest support help. So those would be my takeaways there for what we're looking for in investments.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Thorne, your group is more sort of Rhode Island centric per se. So let's talk about that.
Okay, so partially, Guy, I think this is just a numbers game. If you're talking about a state with 1 million plus people and a fixed number of research institutions, a fixed number of PhDs, there are going to be a smallish number of ventures born here. And then I think when the numbers get a little smaller, it's becomes less likely that you'll have 3 founders that are coming together at the perfect time with the perfect background, and those chance encounters that result in companies are just going to happen less frequently. With that said, I think that so the things that I see are rarely Series B, Series A things, and the germs of great companies are all around us. So I think that 2 things: A, we should be thinking of our region as a bigger area rather than just Rhode Island. And B, I think we should be looking to build on the gems that we have here and pull in resources from anywhere, whether that's people or money.
That's great. So that's yeah, that makes sense, right? You seed these companies locally and you help them in their sort of later rounds as they continue to grow, right? That's great. Well,
so the Slater Fund makes very small investments, but I would say we and our team spend much more time raising money, right? Because we're not, as a seed fund, we have limited, it's a smaller fund, and we're doing run right now for another company. And look, most of the investors are there are a ton in Boston, there are a ton in New York. And those are funds that Rhode Island entrepreneurs can certainly tap.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, Thorne. So let's sort of move to the next question here. And this is going to be really for Dom and Steven. And so as an entrepreneur, how do you start the process of preparing to find capital? So Dom, why don't you start with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Guy. And there's quite a bit that goes into it for sure. But I think in the top summary level, I would say just get your business in order first. Make sure you got all the ducks in a row and everything is nice and clean. So get all the basics completed. And there's a few things there. Certainly you start out with, you have to have some form of minimum valuable product, or in some cases it may be a service, but you have something somewhat tangible that you have. And also, certainly you need a very clear business plan. And when I say business plan, I don't mean a 30-page Word document. That's a lot of people may still think that, but usually business plan these days is actually a very solid, PowerPoint presentation. But even the media of how it's presented is not that important, but really have the plan of what is your, let's say, development phase, R&D, then what's your testing phase, what's your marketing phase, what's your sales phase, and then what's your exit. So you have a clear, business plan strategy from the very beginning to all the way to the exit, if an exit is what what you're doing for your product. And then certainly, you have to be ready and have a clear ask, have that for the investors, have that already ready. How much money you need to achieve which milestones. So, for milestone 1, I will need to have this much money. For milestone 2, which then may get you in a Series A round, I need, this much capital. So I know exactly what kind of capital is required for each milestone. And then as you do all of that, certainly assemble a very strong group of key opinion leaders in your field. Those are very, very essential, that you have KOLs in your field that you can tap into, because have them available and ready to when the investors do the due diligence that can talk to is very important. So get that ready. That's something you can start early on, get KOLs, get to know them, so that when investors have questions down the road, you can tap into them or actually put them in front of the investors. Certainly have a good pitch deck. That's important. Have a nice polished pitch deck, have that ready. And then start populating some of the platforms with your company, meaning, as an example, Gust is one of them that a lot of investor groups use. So fill it out, because it takes a long time to make it complete, and make sure it's complete and not just the bits and pieces here and there. So make sure these online platforms are all done and completed. And I would suggest too, something I learned is that if you're an LLC and you're getting to raise some money, I think it's probably a good idea to switch over to C Corp. Most of the investor groups, they want this to be a C Corp. So get that done, because it's administrative work that could distract you from doing the actual fundraising. So get that done early. So you're a C Corp, it's nice and clean. And also, if you had like earlier investments from friends and family or so, make sure they're nice and clean, meaning that the agreements that you have in place are good, fair agreements that are also suitable for future investors to come in. So make sure that you have good investment agreements with your early investors, so they don't block future investors to come in. And then one of the most important things, not only the networking with key opinion leaders, start networking. You have to talk to people. You have to know the people. Networking is absolutely essential, to know the people in the field. So those are the things I think are really the items I see to start things up, to get ready to do the fundraising.
That's fantastic, Dom. That's great advice. How about and this is going to be, I'm going to let Steven, you talk for 1 second here, but I'm curious as to when you think that you need to start to engage advisors, right? Whether it's accountants, lawyers, consultants, financial people. When you first start out and embark on this exercise, how important are your advisors? And Steven, maybe you want to take that.
They're essential. I think just to back up from what Dom was saying, excuse me, I would agree with everything that Dom said. All of those pieces are absolutely essential in considering a startup and in getting things going. Your question about how important it is to pull together a group of experts is absolutely critical. I mean, we have some ideas. However, those ideas have to be able to withstand a litmus test of experts in the field, because when we go to ultimately to the investors are going to want to know that the ideas that we came up with actually carry some weight and are credible. And so having a credible group of people that can underwrite and to speak for the ideas we've come up with is essential. So that's probably one of the first things that we want to do, is make sure that any entrepreneur wants to do, is to make sure that you've had those types of interactions, that you've tested your ideas, and that you have some support for that. In my area, we came up with an idea that basically went against the dogma of the field. And in coming up with an idea that goes against the dogma of the field, there's an uphill battle in fighting folks that have made their careers moving in one direction when we believe that the direction to pursue is something different. So having a group of high-powered individuals that understand the field and understand the science in our case, that can help us to make that case, is absolutely critical.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts in terms of things that you employed at the very beginning of the process? You sort of came out of corporate America here and started up here. Was there any other sort of thoughts through that transition that were helpful to you?
Yeah, I think a number of things come to mind that piggyback off of what Dom said, and probably the most important in the beginning is to set up an infrastructure, to identify a place to work, to have a corporate structure and documentation that defines who we are and what we do and how we're going to conduct our business. As we move towards funding and moving along, we work with Locklord to establish ourselves first as a C corporation. We debated a lot whether, as Dom said, whether we wanted to be an LLC, a C corp, an S corp, or whatnot. But through advice of counsel, et cetera, we came to the conclusion that C corp gave us the most flexibility. And then once we developed all of that, as people that came out of the industry, it was important to learn all of that and to understand the ramifications of it. And so we spent a lot of time building those and getting that in place. The other thing I think that was very important for us was coming from industry where resources are essentially unlimited. And coming from different size industries, as you go from big to small industry, you have everything on a silver platter to places where you pretty much have to innovate everything you do yourselves. Research is expensive, and and capital equipment in which to support research is very expensive. So we tried to figure out a way that we could build a company and allow us to do very labor-intensive and expensive research without having to buy lots and lots of critically expensive capital equipment. And that's why we came to find University of Rhode Island as a place where we wanted to do a public-private partnership and build our company as part of the university. So we exist, or we thought that we could exist as a private company as part of a public university. And at least with regard to URI, that really had never been done before. And so we pioneered a unique memorandum of understanding with the president of the university and the various folks in the administration to try to set a paradigm in which we could work, maintain confidentiality within the confines of a university, to take advantage of the knowledge that we bring from pharma, a knowledge that's absolutely essential for a university like University of Rhode Island, to help them to think through how to move ideas from ideas to products in pharmaceuticals, and to bring that skill set to them. But also, we recognize through our careers in industry, and as we talked about before, working with the KOLs is very important, and being able to have a group of scientists, professors in the field to bounce ideas off on a daily basis is really very important. And we recognize that URI, in starting their neuroscience program through the Ryan Institute, and also building bridges with Brown and other members of the state, gave us an opportunity through this memorandum of understanding to be able to talk to people without fear that one, we as industry people were going to steal anybody's IP ideas, or two, or the perception of such, or two, that the reverse would happen. And although, I'm a purist in this regard, and I don't believe that we or anybody would ever do that, it does happen. And there is the perception that when you have a public-private partnership, that there are some people that feel that they can gain, by less than pure means. So we wanted to make sure that we had a basis in which to have that kind of relationship. And we created that with the university. The university was open to that, and we were open to that. And so we were able to create that type of a partnership. And in so doing, that gave us access to equipment through the Embry Center, for example, at the University of Rhode Island, to be able to access capital equipment that we then did not have to buy in order to make progress within our company. So I think those are a couple of ideas that go a little bit beyond what Dom was saying, and maybe add a little bit more color to some of the things that you have to think about as you're starting up a company. And perhaps I can get into some other ideas as the discussion progresses.
Thank you. That's super helpful, and congrats again on being able to sort of pull that all together at URI. That's great. All right, so let's go then to the next question. Bob and Thorne, this is probably going to be for you. So tell us about the process of evaluating Lenas and MindImmune and Dom and Steven, and why you decided to invest. What were sort of the what are the things that sort of solidified that decision for you? Bob, why don't you start with this one? You're on mute, Bob.
Yep, there we go. I didn't have anything good to say anyways. No, sorry. So every investment starts out the same way. I mean, we are looking for a 5x return on our investment. 5x is basically the minimum amount when you start to consider that 2 out of 5 deals are going to go south. Maybe 2 give you a push, and maybe there's 1 home run out of that you might get a 5x return, but not knowing which return is going to give you that, or which investment is going to give you that. You need to make sure that each of those investments has that capability. So we're looking for big growth ideas primarily, and so the evaluation process starts with a screen where we look at all these different deals, and we try to figure out if they have that ability. So entrepreneurs should understand that they might have the best things in sliced bread, but if their return on investment isn't going to be that high, then their exit has to be fairly quick. Maybe a 3x investment would be a 2-year to exit or something like that. But beyond that, they're really competing with every other deal that comes across the table. So that's kind of the first point. And then a deal will typically come in through Gust, as Dom mentioned. That's just a platform that we use. It's a secure way for us to get deal information up there. It's a secure way for us to provide due diligence to other angel groups. And as Thorne was mentioning, syndicating deals throughout the ecosystem, whether it's in New England or broader area, is taking place through that platform. So when we're evaluating a deal, we won't be putting it out through that platform until our entire membership has kind of agreed to move forward on it. Once you move out of a screening situation with Cherrystone, for example, and you move to the rest of the membership, you do your presentation. We like the idea. We want to kind of move to the next level of discussion, and we'll move into a due diligence phase. And I can honestly say that the biggest key in my mind, and this comes from all of the different investments that I've done, it still comes down to bet the jockey, not the horse. You're looking for somebody who is talented and knows his stuff. That's always important. But you're looking for somebody who's honest. And amazingly, there's a lot of people that play to the camera, if you will, but are not necessarily coming across as genuine and honest. And you know, as an angel investor, we're looking for board participation. We've found over the years that the knowledge that we bring to the party as a group can seriously help the entrepreneur and the investment to a positive exit. And you know, entrepreneurs just want money. And if you just want money, you know, maybe we're not the right group for you. So we're really looking for somebody who listens intently to us. You know, doesn't have to do what we say, but just listens to the advice that's provided. And so Dom and Lenos went through that. And Dom is, I don't know if it's your Swiss background, Dom, or what, but you listen intently, and you're very detail oriented, way more than I am, that's for sure. And that was very helpful, because when you come across something, and by the way, guys, we mentioned a couple of times here, why a C Corp? At one point, I had 25 K1s for my tax return, and it was like a ream of paper back then. And so, you know, LLCs are just a nightmare, and it becomes very expensive if all of a sudden you end up with 200 or 150 investors in your company to start pushing out K1s. So think about making that switch over early rather than later on a C Corp. So that's why that's important. But you know, we are looking in a deep dive to, and we've already heard this a couple of times, we're looking at a deep dive to make sure that the idea is qualified, to make sure that there's some talent that knows the industry. Very often we'll see ideas that are searching for you know, solutions, searching for a problem, and they may not be ready for prime time. So we're trying to figure out if they've got some real teeth in a marketplace, and the way you prove that is by testing it with people that are in the specific industry. Take opinion leaders that you know that could look at this and say, wow, this is a phenomenal idea. You know, I wish this was out there when I was doing this, or something like that. So that's always an important component that we're looking for, and then we'll validate with the KOLs as Steven and Dom have mentioned. That adds to the whole package, if you will, part of the polish that I was speaking about. And in terms of the service providers, you know, that you made a comment about, Guy, I would say, you know, when I first came to Rhode Island, my attorney, who's now retired, Joe Winery, at the time, said, you know, you're now in Rhode Island. This is the I know a guy state. And you know, service providers, I swear, in the state of Rhode Island, are required by law to give you information whenever you ask. So to any entrepreneur, ask every service provider, you know, if they can help you with something. And even if it's not even within their field, they know a guy. And it's a way to begin that networking process. And I've used it over and over and over again within the state and elsewhere, because people want to help entrepreneurs. That's just kind of the you know, the small guy wanting to help them kind of get ahead sort of feeling that makes everybody happy. So I would definitely recommend any of you guys doing that. But with Lenos,
that's good advice, Bob.
Yeah, and with Lenos, we, you know, at the end of the day, good product had moved through a lot of gates for a lot less money than anything we had seen in the medical device world at the time, and really had some key investors that were willing to throw money in with us. So that's, you know, that's always an important component. Who is on your cap table beforehand is important. So
Good.
that's another big thing that we looked at.
Excellent. Bob, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thorn, you're both an investor in Lanas as well as MindImmune. So we would be very interested in hearing your perspective here on sort of how you evaluated and how you decided to invest here.
Sure. So with the caveat that MindImmune was actually an investment of my colleague, Rich Horan, we are an investor in both, but I can back up to the more general level. Venture capital is a specific subset of all investing. Seed venture capital is a specific subset of venture capital, and life sciences investing is a beast all of its own. So there are things that are unique to life sciences investing. So when we invest in a software product, we start with the fact that the product works and solves a problem, and then we start talking to users and customers. In life sciences, it's almost the exact opposite. You assume that there will be a market for the products because there may be an unmet need or partially unmet need, and then you spend maybe a decade and tens of millions of dollars trying to make a product work for them. So it's totally different than other types of investing. I think that the key thing that we look for at the Slater Fund, and it's a theme you've heard before, is the people in the company and then the people that they attract. So if you look, Dom has been working in spine since 1997 in one of the seminal companies in that space. And Steven was 20 years at Pfizer in Groton, Connecticut. I mean, these guys know everything backwards and forwards, and they're patient enough to explain it to me and then explain it to me again when I forget it. And the people that are around them, Jenna Marshall, Matt Leffers, hanging around Lanas, you can tell that the team is up to the task. On Lanas in specific, we spent a lot of time on the intellectual property because you would not believe the number of devices and materials that people have tried to use to fix your spine, and it's just unreal. And we were trying to make sure that there was something special about what Dom was working on. In healthcare, you have to think a lot about the various choosers and users of solutions. So maybe something has a particular patient benefit, but you also have to convince doctors. So we spent some time talking to doctors. So I would say it's a very difficult area that begins with science, the novelty or the mechanisms understood. You have to be able to spend time with peer-reviewed journals, and frankly, you're lucky to have very experienced founders.
Nice job. Thank you, Thorn. So we have one more question here, and we're starting to bump up on time a little bit. So I just want to get some Q&A, but I would like to just ask this kind of final question, and this is really for Steven and Dom. And this is what really I think that many people are on this call to learn about, and that is, what is your experience and how do you sort of embark on actually searching for investors, right? So when it comes down to when you're ready to start, finding money, give us a little bit about, how you went about doing it and what advice you might have for those people who are at that stage. And maybe Steven, if you want to start with this one.
Sure. I think that, in a nutshell, it's don't sit on your seat, get out there and pound the pavement and talk to everybody. Don't expect anybody to do anything for you in this regard. You have to go out and be the entrepreneur that you are, and find folks that believe in what you can do. For us, initially, that was Slater, Rich Warren. As Thorn said, we went through our science over and over as much as everyone needed to hear about it. And were patient and understanding of what we knew and what they didn't, and tried to get them to buy into us. And we were fortunate that Rick saw something in us, and was able to seek funds from Slater to be a seed company for us. I think part of that had to do with the fact that one of our founders had previously founded a company and had a good relationship with Slater, had received seed funding from them before, and that company went on to do great things. But I think it's really, really important to network everyone, to go to conferences, to look at pitch book, to identify all the possible companies within the sector that might have funds that would be consistent with what you're trying to do. This is not for the faint at heart. This is a lot of work. It takes a great percentage of our time to go out and to do this, and we have to have infinite patience. We reached out to the governor of the state, the lieutenant governor, commerce. We literally turned over every single stone. Our initial focus was on seed. Then we talked to angels, and we were successful with a variety of angel investors. One of the big pharma companies that we work for, Pfizer, invested quite a bit of money in us, and ultimately, we've been able to assemble close to $3 million in invested capital in order to get to where we are. And now we're focusing on institutional venture capital groups in order to help us to round out the larger money that we need in order to go forward. And just to give you a sense of that, with regard to the institutional investors, we've targeted about 50 of those that we're actively engaged in talks with. So it's not one or two or three or four, it's a lot. And from what I hear and talking with other entrepreneurs, it only takes one or two, and sometimes you might have to talk to 200 investors in order to find the ones that believe in what you're doing, and ultimately to create a great company and bring forward a great product. So let me stop there and throw it to Dom for some additional thoughts.
All right, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And everybody mentioned it before, networking is a really important part. It's absolutely essential. And you have to find out, who are the local investment groups. When I first came here, I didn't know Jerry Stone or Slater or Magpie or any of those funds. I didn't know them. So find out who these funds are. And then, start talking to the people, start networking as early as possible. Is just absolutely essential, because I feel that no investor or investor group will make an investment in somebody they don't have some form of connection or link with. So you got to make those links, you got to make those connections, and don't expect to anyone to jump on after the first discussion to put in some money. You got to talk to the people more than once, multiple times, so they can get to know you, they get to know what you're doing. And it's a long process. Like as Seven said, it takes some time to do it. And but you just have to network. I can give you just a little bit of an example. I worked for Synthes and J&J. I was up in Raynham. I had an immense network of people, immense. I've been in this industry for 20 years. But I have to tell you, this network is a different network. If you go into be an entrepreneur and go and try to raise some funds, it is very, very different. And when I first came here to Providence, I always lived in Bristol, and then I started to immerse into Providence. I didn't know one single person. And I have to tell you, today I'm looking at this phone call here, or the Zoom call. There's 70 people on this call. I bet you I'll know at least a third of the people on this call, or people know me here as well. I think it's so important to network. And for me, the way it started, it was quite simple. I started to go to Sprout. There's like a co-working space, and I started speaking to people there. That's how I, was introduced to Thorn. To Thorn, I was introduced to Aiden. With Aiden, I got to New England Medical Innovation Fund, and then I met Carol. Carol introduced me to the Rhode Island Bio Board. That's how I met Patrice, and it just kept going like this. And I started to build this network with these, people that are tremendously helpful, and they all want to help you. And eventually it led to, Jerry Stone to become an investor. And then after Jerry Stone, Slater become an investor. and Magpie Innovation Fund became an investor. And those local investment groups, they were a tremendous springboard to then go to the broader New England area. Thanks to the Slater and Cherrystone, we were exposed then to anything broader outside of just Rhode Island. So I think, if you ask me what's the most important thing, it's really immerse yourself in this local, business community and network, and then, start speaking to those people, and that's how you can get some funds.
It's a great story, Dom. You've done an unbelievable job, as have you, Steven. So I think that's the key takeaway here for the entrepreneurs in the audience, or that, yeah, you got to network, you got to get to know people. And, it takes dozens and hundreds of connections here to find the capital you're looking for. So that's great advice. Thank you. So this is sort of where we're going to jump off here. I think, Carol, if we have any questions there, maybe we can take a few questions. I'll kind of leave it to you here to sort of select a couple if we have any.
Thank you, Guy. We don't have any questions in the chat, so maybe if people have questions, they want to direct them right to you.
Sure. So anybody, please feel free here. If there's anybody, in the chat and you'd like to sort of ask a question, that's great. I would say, maybe just throwing this back to Thorn and Bob in terms of, trying to figure out ways to network amongst the entrepreneurs here. If you guys have any advice on sort of, what those activities look like, right? So Bob, Bob, you're a member and I'm a member of Cherrystone. There's, 60, 65 members at this point. Do you find a willingness here for, people that to, introduce other entrepreneurs who, are trying to raise capital? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, I would even say, don't even worry about raising capital. You should be networking no matter what, whether you need capital or not. Matter of fact, the smartest and best time to raise capital is when you don't need it, not when you do need it. So it's this, what Dom was saying is exactly right. Just start networking and getting out there. And if you need a specific resource, I mean, as a board member for different companies, I always tell people, ask me, tell me. I work for you. You don't work for the board. So however, whatever you need, let me know, and I'll see what I can do, or I'll get you in touch with somebody who's a subject matter expert, and we can see if we can help you out that way. But I just think that there's a lot of people that don't reach out and ask the question. So that's what I would suggest to entrepreneurs.
Yeah, good advice. Thorn, how about you? So,
I have a really specific piece of advice here, and it's a little bit the same as Bob's. And let me give it quickly here, because I actually need to jump to the exact task we're talking about here. What we do as a process when we're helping a company raise money is we find the lookalike companies, the ecosystem of other people that are doing spine implants, what have you. And then we take all the investors that have invested in all those companies, and we figure out who the partner is that did that deal. Okay, so 20 years ago, you couldn't do this, and they didn't have angel networks, and they didn't have an internet. Now there is no excuse for not knowing the exact investors that have invested in your sector in all the companies for the last 5 years and who the partner is, because it's all in databases like PitchBook. And then, miracle of miracles, you can get onto LinkedIn and see what friends you have in common. And when you have friends like Patrice Milos, she's going to be connected to everyone in Cambridge in her sector. And who else is a super connector? Ray Matthews connected to a lot of people, Angus Davis. Some people just have incredible networks, but you're always at the end of that process going to go and ask somebody for a targeted favor. And that's going to take time. You cannot do that quickly. But the part that you can do with incredible power is figure out who wants to meet you ultimately, and how do you get to them through social connections without wasting anybody's time.
That's great. Great advice, Thorne. Thank you. So we do have a question here. Brendan McCory. Brendan, can you hear us okay? Can you sort of?
Thank you very much, Guy. Great presentation. I always enjoy these events put on by Rhode Island Bio. Really, maybe a question to Steven and Dom. Steven, you mentioned I'll call it the infrastructure support you have at URI with the lab space and everything like that. I'd be curious in both of your reactions to how do you feel about lab space availability in Rhode Island? And is that a help or a hindrance to building this industry in Rhode Island?
Don, you want to take it first?
I think, in our case, we don't need a lot of lab space. Our lab space is a little bit different than I think what you use, Steven, but I can say in our case, the labs that we need, and I don't want to gross anyone out, is we actually use, we do practical surgeries, we do cadaver labs, and we're lucky enough, there was one literally right across the street at the building almost across the street, the Rhode Island Orthopedic Foundation. So we used that. It was a small, tiny lab. It was sufficient for us, but it's very different, I think, than what Steven does. It's very, very different. So Steven, you better answer from your side.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, lab space in Rhode Island is lacking. Everything is very tight on the university in order to find space, even for faculty members. I think it's a great thing, this innovation center that's going up in Providence is part of the Wexford Center, et cetera. That will bring much needed lab space, but I think the state would be more competitive if it could provide more. I think that for MindImmune, we do a lot of work through contract research organizations, but we are also dependent on wet lab work that we do ourselves in the lab. As our company expands, I think ultimately it will be impossible for us to continue to find lab space at the university, given that space is at a premium and we'll be looking for another place to move. That's not an immediate concern, but that is a concern within the state of Rhode Island.
Can I just chime in? To say thank you to Rhode Island Bio for whether this is a question of developing lab space or access to capital for entrepreneurs in the life sciences sector, which is really one of the most promising sectors we can invest in. Rhode Island Bio is keeping its eye on the ball here. So thank you for having us for this important topic.
Thank you, Thorne. I really appreciate that. And always great to partner with you. Guy, we have another question that I don't know if you saw it about the cannabis research. Did you see that question?
I did not, actually. I didn't see that.
I will read it. Yes.
Yeah.
So we are in the NON plant touching industry, federally allowed cannabis research bioscience company. In the past, investor groups have not been interested. Has this changed?
Bob, I'm gonna turn that to you. I know in the past, Cherry Stone has been shown a lot of those deals in the cannabis space, but you have any thoughts on that?
I guess I've been researching it quite a bit in my own spare time in the background here, but I have not seen a significant uptake in that space from investors out there. It has been fairly slow to mature. And I think one of the reasons has more to do with the fact that there's a government regulation component that could be the shoe that drops that kills an investment or changes an investment fairly routinely. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it has been slow. So I haven't seen any change in that improvement in cannabis investment in Rhode Island.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. I work for Bank of America. Any of the banks, small or large, are sort of have federal restrictions against, loaning money to the industry, et cetera. So I would say in my world, what I would find is that the people who are raising money in the cannabis space are really sort of raising that money by, individuals, right? People like, what Steven and Dom talked about, which is, you find some individual high net worth people who have some kind of a connection to the cannabis industry that they're interested in. That's the kind of capital that I'm seeing that's being raised there. But, the whole sort of federal restrictions there, and until that's lifted, it just makes it a little bit harder to find those types of investment opportunities. Any other thoughts? Any other questions?
We have a lot of people putting in their connections, Nemic and a few other people. If you look in your chat, those connections are available to you. RI Hub, Venture Cafe. So these are all excellent networking opportunities for everyone. So please take advantage of them. Take a look at the Rhode Island Bio website for upcoming events, Cherry Stone events. There's many opportunities to network. And Guy, do you have any closing thoughts that you want to end with?
No, I would say the only one thing that I thought I may have seen a chat, but I just wanted to touch on it quickly, was the whole sort of concept of incubators, right? And so, NEMIC is one, Mass Challenge, and these are, where early stage companies can, get some office space and get some, some expertise and some advice. And so I don't know if, I know Dom, you may have had some, experience with NEMIC and or any other incubator. So if any of the panelists have any thoughts on that, in closing here, maybe that's how we can jump off.
Yeah, Guy, that was a big part of the networking, coming downtown Providence, be located in this case at NEMIC, but also had access to, Venture Cafe and CIC, with all those events. Certainly they dried out a little bit because of the pandemic, but just being physically located within this ecosystem made a huge difference, because all of a sudden you're exposed to like-minded people, and you start with one person, and all of a sudden this other person knows another person. I think Bob mentioned it when he came back to Rhode Island. He says, it's like you always know somebody. It's always somebody else that links you to somebody else, and I feel that's a huge advantage for Rhode Island and Providence area, because it's a smaller group, but you get a chance to network with a lot of people. I mean, one day, very brief, just we were at the small event, and I was speaking to this gentleman, and I asked him then, so what do you do? And he says, oh, I'm Stephen Pryor. And I had no clue that I was speaking to the Secretary of the State. I had no idea. But you have a chance to be exposed and speak to people, from all ranks in Rhode Island. And that's really, it's a huge advantage, and an extreme advantage for startups, I feel.
Yep. I would agree. And I think to your point, Dom, the opportunity to, attend events and network with folks like that, unfortunately, that's been sort of inhibited a little bit by COVID, but hopefully when people get back to, doing events in person, it's much more effective. And so, yeah, I would recommend that as well. So Carol, I guess, we're sort of at time here. If you have any closing comments, feel free, we can wrap it up.
Thank you. I want to thank the panel and thank Guy for your excellent job moderating the panel. Thank you again to our co-host, Rhode Island INBRI, Bungsup Cho, the program director there, and to Driven, and to Venture Cafe for hosting us, and to Bio for being a sponsor of this event. For anyone who is interested in attending more events like this, please look at our website at ri-bio.org. We're also going to send out a survey after this to get a better idea of what other events you might be interested in the future. So please fill that out. And for people who want to become part of our Rhode Island Bio family, we would love to have you join as members, and you can do that on our website as well under membership. So thank you all for attending today. It was great to hear both the business and science side this morning. I really enjoyed hearing both perspectives and putting them together. And that's what we really do as an organization. So thank you all again. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thanks.
you.
Thank
Have a
you,
great day,
everybody.
everybody.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.